She typed, "You're fired," into a text message. 6 months later, I owned the entire building she was sitting in. My name was on the deed. Her name was on a resignation. So get this. I was a senior project manager at a mid-sized logistics firm in Dallas, Texas. 4 years of solid numbers, a team that actually respected me, and a boss I will forever call Karen Supreme. But she had this obsession with control, and she hated that I didn't grovel. I wrapped up a quarterly report, sent it to her by 3 p.m., and headed out early for my daughter's soccer game. A text from Karen Supreme, "Don't bother coming in Monday. HR will mail your stuff." 4 years of late nights and weekend emails. Now most people would spiral, call a lawyer. But I didn't. Because Karen Supreme made one critical mistake. She fired the only person in that company. I'd run the logistics budget for 3 years. I knew every vendor contract. And I knew, with absolute certainty, her company was hemorrhaging cash faster than a teenager at a gas station. They owned a dozen logistics firms across the South, and they were quietly trying to unload the Dallas branch because it had underperformed for 2 straight. She thought she was untouchable, but I had a friend in the Houston office. Over a beer that weekend, he told me, they're desperate to sell. It was surprisingly low enough that I started doing math on a napkin. I had savings. I had a 401 pass. I had a cousin who owed me a favor and ran a small investment fund, and I had something Karen never expected. I didn't want revenge. The negotiation took 4 weeks, and I treated it like a chess game, where I already knew every move the other side was going to make. I hired a lawyer who specialized in distressed acquisitions. He handled all the communication with Houston. Every time the private equity group tried to push for a higher price, I had my lawyer gently remind them that the Dallas branch was bleeding clients and losing money. I had the vendor contracts that were about to expire. I had the emails Karen Supreme had accidentally CC'd to the wrong people. They folded on a Tuesday. I signed the papers on a Thursday. And on Monday morning, I walked into the building I used to work in, wearing the same kind of shirt I always wore, holding the same coffee cup. She whispered, "What are you doing here?" I smiled and said, "I own the place now." She didn't believe me until I pulled out my phone and showed her the news article that had gone up that morning. Dallas logistics firm acquired by former employee. The door was open. She was on the phone, laughing about something. She saw me in the doorway, and her face went through about 12 emotions in 3 seconds. Recognition. And then, slowly, dawning horror. I sat down across from her desk, put my feet up on her coffee table, and said the words I had been rehearsing in the shower for 2 months. "I didn't blink," she said. "You can't do this." I pulled up the acquisition documents on my phone. That's my signature. That's the fund's letterhead. And that's the deed to this building. I can. She didn't resign at noon. She resigned at 10:47 a.m. She didn't even pack her own boxes. She made the intern do it, and she walked out of that building for the last time. But the aftermath was even sweeter than the moment itself. I renegotiated every vendor contract. I promoted the people Karen had been holding back. I gave raises to the employees she had been underpaying, and I made sure every single person in that building knew exactly what had happened, not because I wanted to gloat. Sometimes the person you fire over text ends up signing your paycheck. That's when the former parent company from Houston called me personally. They wanted to know if I was interested in acquiring 2 more of their struggling branches. They'd heard through the grapevine that I'd turned the Dallas operation around in less than 100 days. They just saw the numbers. I told them I'd need to review the financials first, but inside, because if I could pull this off, I wouldn't just own 1 building. The due diligence took 3 weeks. I flew to Oklahoma City on a Tuesday. The manager there was a guy I'll call Captain Clueless. Nice enough, but he had no idea his own operation was losing money on 40% of its routes. And I found exactly what I expected. The same lazy vendor contracts, the same bloated overhead. They accepted within 48 hours. That branch had a manager who actually knew what she was doing. A woman I'll call Competent Cathy. She was frustrated, she was underpaid, and she was one good conversation away from quitting. I sat in her office. I told her exactly what I was doing. And I offered her something no corporate overlord had ever offered her before, a 15% equity stake in her own branch if she stayed on as partner. Now here's where the symmetry gets beautiful. 6 months after Karen Supreme fired me over text, her old company was the flagship, and Competent Cathy's branch in Little Rock, the Houston group, started calling me for advice. I told them my consulting rate was triple what I used to make as a project manager. The last I heard, Karen Supreme was working at a car dealership in Plano, trying to sell extended warranties to people who didn't want them. Her new title was Customer Experience Specialist. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. But the part that still gets me, if she'd called me into a conference room and fired me like a professional, I would have found another job. She made it petty, and in doing so, she woke up something in me that I didn't know existed. So what do you think? Did I go too far, or was it perfectly deserved? And if you want more stories like this, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. I was sitting in Karen's old office, my office now, reviewing the new vendor contracts when my assistant buzzed in. Harrison from the parent company on line 2. The same people who'd been quietly trying to unload this branch for pennies on the dollar. Harrison's voice was smooth, the kind of corporate politeness that usually precedes a knife in the back. Impressive turnaround. We have 2 more branches, Oklahoma City and Little Rock. Interested? I kept my voice flat. Send me the financials. I spent the weekend with a highlighter and a calculator, and what I found made me laugh out loud. Their logistics manager, a guy I'll now call Captain Clueless, had been signing vendor contracts that were 30% above market rate for 3 years. He'd never once questioned the price. He just signed whatever was put in front of him and called it a day. The Little Rock branch was different. That one had a manager named Cathy. Her trucks were old, and she'd been asking for a budget increase for 18 months with 0 response. Captain Clueless met me in the parking lot, shaking my hand like I was an old friend. I spent 2 days going through his books, and by the end of the second day, I had a list of 7 vendors he needed to fire. He said the vendors were long-term partners. The Little Rock trip was the opposite. I sat in Cathy's cramped office. Her desk was literally held up by a stack of phone books. I want to buy this branch, I said. 15% equity, and a new roof by the end of the month. She stared at me for a long 10 seconds. When do I start? The acquisitions closed within 6 weeks. The Houston Group's portfolio had been bleeding for years, and I'd just taken a third of it off their hands. They just wanted the problem to go away. I was flying between Dallas, Oklahoma City, and Little Rock. I replaced 3 managers who'd been coasting. I gave Cathy the budget she'd been begging for. But the real moment, the one I still think about, came in month 4. A LinkedIn notification. Karen Supreme had updated her profile. Her new title, Customer Experience Specialist at a car dealership in Plano, Texas. She was wearing a blue polo shirt with the dealership's logo. Her bio said she was passionate about helping customers find their perfect vehicle. I laughed so hard a warehouse worker asked if I was okay. I've never been better. The Little Rock warehouse was the first place I actually felt like I owned something real. Cathy had been running that operation on fumes and stubbornness for years. I spent the first week just listening. I sat in on their morning huddles, watched how they loaded trucks. And I realized something that Karen Supreme never understood. You can't fix a company from a corner office. The turning point came on a Wednesday. I was in the break room, pouring myself a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt regret. He was a guy in his late 50s, worn-out boots, a cap that had seen better decades. He said, "You know we've been using the same route maps for 11 years. I did not know that. This is the route I actually drive. Saves 40 miles a day." I looked at the official route map. That conversation saved us $12,000 a month in fuel costs alone. No managers filtering the feedback, no Karen Supreme telling people their suggestions were outside their pay grade. One guy showed me a loading dock procedure that was wasting 30 minutes per truck. A woman in accounting pointed out a vendor we'd been overpaying for office supplies since 2019. Another driver knew a shortcut that shaved 15 minutes off every delivery to the south side of the city. Within 90 days, we were profitable for the first time in 2 years. This time, it was Harrison himself, the senior partner. We have 3 more branches that need your kind of management. I hung up the phone and looked at the framed photo on my desk of my daughter's soccer team. She looked so proud, and I thought about Karen Supreme sitting in her Plano car dealership. I called Harrison back the next morning. "But I want them at the same price you gave me for Dallas." He didn't even counter. 8 months after a text message ended my old career. The person who fired me was selling cars, and I was building something that would outlast everyone who ever doubted me.